her silence, Narad made reply, tuning his lips to earthly sound. He spoke, implacable in the passion of their will, lifting the hammer of titanic toil. The demiurges of universal work, they shape with giant strokes their own. Their sons are marked with their enormous stamp of fire.
that there should be all of this pain and suffering. What is the meaning of that, the necessity of that? And the queen, Savitri's mother, is giving voice to this question of humanity. So she's raising all these points, philosophical questions, to Narad, the heavenly sage who is present at the time. Savitri has just announced her choice of Satyavan as her mate, and Narad has revealed, at the insistence of the queen and others present, Satyavan's fate, that he would die in exactly 1 year from that day. And so the queen tries to persuade Savitri to choose someone else, but Savitri insists that her choice, once made, cannot be undone, that it is written in the book of God and cannot be changed. And so the queen takes this as kind of a seal upon this fate, this dreadful fate that her daughter must now face, the death of her husband in just 1 year. So we have begun reading the beginning of the canto, in which the queen begins laying out these different questions about this issue of fate and the problem of pain. And we've come to page 439 at the very bottom. We'll just read the last line of the page again and continue in our analysis of this canto. So would you like to begin reading the last line of page 439 and continue?
Thank you so much. I'm very thankful to be a part of this group today. On nature's gifts to man, a curse was laid. All walks inarmed by its own opposites. Error is the comrade of our mortal thought, and falsehood lurks in the deep bosom of truth. Sin poisons with its vivid flowers of joy, or leaves a red scar burnt across the soul. Virtue is a great voyage and a gown. At every step is laid for us a snare, alien to reason and the spirit's light. Our fount of action from darkness wells. In ignorance, in naysayers are our roots. A growing register of calamities is the past's account, the future's book of fate. The centuries pile man's follies and man's crimes upon the countless crowd of nature's gifts. As if the world's stone load was not enough, a crop of miseries obstinately is sown. By his own hand, in the furrows of the gods, the vast, increasing, tragic harvest reaped from old misdeeds buried by oblivious time.
Thank you. Let's pause there. So I had mentioned one time that the Queen is an acute observer of the human condition. In a sense, she's laying out one side of this issue of fate. She's describing, in a sense, what seems to be our fate. All of the problems, the errors of human existence, of human mind. At the same time, all of the afflictions that nature provides for us in which we have to live. I thought on this particular passage that I would read something from Shraddhavan. She has a fairly nice analysis of this passage. So I'm just going to read a little bit from her. She says, nature gives certain gifts to man, all the beauties of the universe, life being one of them. But, she says, the Queen says, these gifts come with a curse. There is some misfortune attached to them. And then she describes what that curse is that afflicts the gifts that nature gives to human beings. She says here, everything is walking arm in arm with its opposite. Inarmed means arm in arm. She says, there is nothing you can get as itself. If there is happiness, there will be sorrow. If there is heat, there will be cold. If there is light, there will be darkness. If there is knowledge, there will be ignorance. Everything walks, moves along, inarmed by its opposite. That is why error is the comrade of our mortal thought. We say to err is human. We are making mistakes all the time. Falsehood is lurking, is hiding there in the deep bosom of truth. We think we have found some truth and we try to lead our life according to that truth, but too often it happens that if we stick to it too closely, we find ourselves going astray in one way or another. There is, of course, a truth which is beyond all opposites, but that is not the truth that we find here. What is true for one person is not true for another. There is something we feel as sin, something that separates us from the divine or from our own soul. Often we do things that are sinful. We find them very attractive. They give us vivid, bright, and clear flowers of joy. But these are poisonous flowers, and they have such a terrible effect upon us. Sin poisons the soul or even leaves a terrible scar, a red scar burnt across the soul. The opposite of sin is virtue, and that also can be a great bondage, a prison, which prevents us from developing as a soul needs to develop. We have this word jail, G-A-O-L, meaning prison. It's an old way of spelling, and Sri Aurobindo uses this in a couple of places in Savitri. At every step is laid for us a snare. Hunters lay snares on the animal's path in the forest to catch a deer or a rabbit or some other small animal. Likewise, there is always something or other in our path trying to trip us or catch hold of us. She says that our fountain of action, the motives or the energy that impels us to act, is coming up from a darkness, from something that we are not aware of or something that may be dark in itself. That darkness is alien to reason. Many times we find ourselves doing things that we do not really know why we do them. Alien to reason and the Spirit's light. There is a darkness from which much of our actions and decisions do come up. The verb wells implies that it is like water coming out of the ground. Our roots, like the roots of a tree, are in ignorance and nescience, not knowing. You may remember Sri Aurobindo's poem about a tree beside a sandy river beach. Its roots go down and drink the water, but its branches are trying to go up into the higher. He says it is the soul of man. We want to grow up towards the light, but our roots are holding us down to the earth. That is because we have emerged, we have evolved from the inconscience. We have come out of this darkness of matter. Our life has emerged and the power of mind has emerged, but we are still living under the domination of the material principle. Here is that, she puts a footnote, that poem. A tree beside a sandy river beach holds up its topmost boughs. Like fingers towards the skies they cannot reach. Earthbound, heaven amorous. This is the soul of man, body and brain, hungry for earth, our heavenly flight detain. And we see that Sri Aurobindo in this passage tells towards the end how man piles on a growing register of calamities. The centuries pile man's follies and man's crimes upon the countless crowd of nature's ills, as if the world's stone load was not enough. The crop of miseries obstinately is sown by his own hand in the furrows of the gods. The vast, increasing, tragic harvest reaped from old misdeeds buried by oblivious time. Well, the stone load, very heavy load, as if of stones, that we have to carry due to our material basis, our physical basis in matter. So naturally, we have to carry this heavy load. That's just part of the evolution. We have to carry the burden of our physicality with us.
and I try to understand how you put it here.
Yeah, it's that we're carrying that load, that material load. And it's heavy, but upon that, we throw all these extra things on top of it. We, through our own ignorance, through our own ill will, our own, deviousness, we create more and more difficulties and problems for ourselves. We're our own worst enemy, in a sense. And all our misdeeds that we do, they're buried in the furrows of time. So we reap through our karma all of those consequences of the misdeeds of mankind. We're still reaping that harvest from long ago. So we'll continue. Tinika. Oh, okay.
If virtue and sin are both not the right guidance for action, if sin can be joyful and virtue can be a prison, and a lot of the action is coming from darkness, right? When we make choices, we want to be, how can we find the path of light? And this action is coming from light and not from darkness. How can we ascertain that?
These dualities, these opposites always confront us and always follow us until we can emerge into a higher state of being and state of consciousness that is above these dualities. And ultimately, perhaps we cannot even do that by ourselves. We're faced with these problems until the divine comes. We'll see this more as this canto continues, of how the divine comes to lift this burden, to relieve us of these difficulties. So the divine brings down the light into this darkness and ultimately transforms it. In the meantime, we have to do our best, We have to strive for light despite the darkness. We have to strive for truth despite the fact that we will be hampered in that by falsehood. We have to do our best under the circumstances, but at the same time, we have to open up to a higher state of being and consciousness, to the light of the divine that can finally deliver us from this condition. Okay.
Would it also be fair to say that this is not the whole truth, right? This is just the Queen's perspective. So,
right. She's laying out.
This is a more maybe pessimistic side, which is a part of the truth.
Yeah.
But then when we get Auroville's response, we'll see the other side, which may be that there is virtue and sin, but that doesn't mean that virtue is not there. Even if it's a prison, there is still virtue there.
Right. She's more laying out the problem and not yet giving the solution to the problem. this is what we see. She's giving voice to our predicament that we see and feel. Narad will give kind of the answer to it. And he will also deal with this question of the dualities. We may get to it yet today, I'm not sure. Okay, let's begin.
He walks by his own choice into hell's trap. This mortal creature is his own worst foe. His science is an artificer of doom. He ransacks earth for means to harm his kind. He slays his happiness and others' good. Nothing has he learned from time and its history. Even as of old in the raw youth of time, when earth ignorant ran on the highway of fate, old forms of evil cling to the world's soul. War making naught the sweet smiling calm of life. Battle and rapine, ruin and massacre are still the fierce pastime of man's warring tribes. An idiot hour destroys what centuries made. His wanton rage or frenzied hate lays low the beauty and greatness by his genius wrought, and the mighty output of a nation's toil. All he has achieved, he drags to the precipice. His grandeur he turns to an epic of doom and fall. His littleness crawls content through squalor and mud. He calls heaven's retribution on his head and wallows in his self-made misery. A part author of the cosmic tragedy, his will conspires with death and time and fate.
Thank you. Pause. Unfortunately, we can see the truth of what she is saying here played out every night on the evening news. Old forms of evil cling to the world's soul. You know, this war, battle, and rapine, that's plunder of property, ruin and massacre, are still the fierce pastimes of man's warring tribes. It seems as if this has been going on throughout the entire human history. And what have we learned, you know? How many times has this been happening? How many wars have we had? And never have we learned.
at the situation how the world is now, as man's volume drives, how low the consciousness is. It's not developed.
Yeah, it's at its roots, it's still the same. We haven't escaped from this problem, this suffering, this self-made suffering. Now they say the famines and all of that still are afflicting us, still those are now all man-made. We have all the tools and resources. We could feed everyone. We could create a harmonious life for all the peoples. But mankind just refuses to do that, to take that step.
This is happening, and he describes it very beautifully. But what is the solution or answer or future of the people who create this mess? Do they have to pay for it? Do they have to... that's a question I have.
Well, it seems that there is a law of karma that follows us that's difficult to escape. But there is a possibility of transcending that karma, but that requires a sincere opening and surrender to the divine. And so, but that's not an easy condition, especially for those who have been engaging in
So then actually my next question is, will this happen during this lifetime of these people who do this, or in the next lifetime? I'm just curious or confused.
well, it depends on when they make that conversion. But somewhere, as Sri Aurobindo says, that, even for the Asura, the divine looks out even for them, and they too will be delivered. So, eventually, all will be delivered and transformed and brought into the light. Maybe not all together at the same time, but eventually. How long this will take to unfold, we don't know. But certainly an individual, even though engaging in whatever kinds of terrible acts, can turn their life around, can turn to the divine, and that karma can be lifted. Even in this life. That possibility is there always for the soul. Shall we continue? Read it. Where? Which line? I don't know. Where did we stop?
146. brief appearance. Yeah.
His brief appearance. His brief appearance on the enigmated earth ever recurs, but brings no high result. To this wanderer, though the eon reigns of God, through the eon reigns of God that shut his life in their vast longevity, his soul's wide search and ever-returning hopes pursue the useless orbit of their course, in a vain repetition of lost toils, across a track of soon-forgotten lives. All is an episode in a meaningless tale. Why is it all, and wherefore are we here? If to some being of eternal bliss it is our spirit's destiny to return, or some still impersonal height of endless calm, since that we are, and out of that we came, whence rose the strange and sterile interlude, lasting in vain through interminable time? Who willed to form or feign a universe in the cold and endless emptiness of space? Or if these beings must be and their brief lives, what need had the soul of ignorance and tears? Whence rose the call for sorrow and for pain? Or all came helplessly without a cause? What power forced the immortal spirit to birth?
Thank you. So first, the Queen emphasizes this issue of this continuation of this ignorance and suffering through life after life after life. We looked at this problem of war and going on throughout human history. Thousands and thousands of years. So then she asks the fundamental questions. Why is it all? And wherefore are we here? And then she suggests the Indian viewpoint that we come from the divine, out of Satchidananda. From that we come, to that we return. Oh, that's the formula. Since that we are, and out of that we came. So why we coming out of that bliss, we're going to return into that bliss eventually. Why do we have to descend into this hell of suffering. For what reason? Lasting in vain through interminable time. Who willed to form or feign a universe, make up or invent such a world in the cold and endless emptiness of space? Who is the author of this tragic tale of our world, our universe? Or if these beings, for some reason, must be, why had the soul the need for ignorance and tears? Why this suffering? Or have all these souls come here helplessly, without any cause or reason? We were forced. What power forced the immortal spirit to birth? So these are deep philosophical questions she's asking. And to some extent, these questions, I think, are not fully answered by the traditional Indian spirituality. Why is it? They say, yes, there is this divine state, this divine being, reality, and we can return to that. From that we have come. This is perhaps just some illusion or something that we are caught in. But it doesn't really give a satisfactory answer of why. Why was this allowed to be? So she'll continue. One more passage.
The eternal witness once of eternity, a deathless sojourner mid transcend scenes, he camps in life's half-lit obscurity, amid the debris of the thoughts and dreams. Or who persuaded it to fall from bliss, and forfeit its immortal privilege? Who laid on it the ceaseless will to live? A wonder in this beautiful, sorrowful world, and bear it load of joy and grief and love. Or, if no being watches the works of time, what hard impersonal necessity compels the vain toil of brief living things? A great illusion then has built the stars, but where then is the soul's security, its poise, in this cycling of unreal suns? Or else is it a wandered from its home, who strayed into the blind alley of time and change and chance, and finds no issue for a meaningless world? Or where begins and ends illusion's reign? Perhaps the soul we feel is only a dream, eternal self of fiction sensed in trance.
Thank you. She speaks of the soul descending into this world of pain and suffering. A spirit, an eternal spirit, witness once of eternity. It has come from that eternal existence, consciousness, and now it's a deathless sojourner, a traveler, mid transient scenes, mid passing scenes, this changing world. He camps in life's half-lit obscurity amid the debris of his thoughts and dreams. So it's the spirit has come down, a sojourner, someone who's journeying in this world. But who persuaded it to fall from its state of bliss and forfeit its immortal privilege? Why would it come down into this? Who laid on it the ceaseless will to live a wanderer in this beautiful, sorrowful world and bear its load of joy and grief and love? And then she suggests an alternative. If no being watches the works of time, what hard impersonal necessity, what kind of unconscious or impersonal necessity compels this vain toil of brief living things? Then a great illusion then has built the stars. So that's a possible explanation, but where then is the soul's security, its poise in this circling of unreal suns? If it's all just an illusion that somehow occurred due to some necessity, or perhaps it's a wanderer from its home who strayed into a blind alley of time and chance. Perhaps it's just kind of accidentally strayed, gone astray into this world of darkness and time, and finds no way to escape. Or where begins and ends illusion's reign? If it's just an illusion, where is the beginning and end of that illusion? Perhaps what we feel as a soul itself is only a dream, a fiction. That there is no soul, eternal soul. That too is an illusion. So she's asking all these questions. She doesn't know the answer. Now, Narad will give us his reply. So we'll continue next.
Then, after a silence, Narad made reply. Turning his lips to earthly sound, he spoke. And something now of the deep sense of fate weighted the fragile hints of mortal speech. his forehead shone with vision solemnized, turned to a tablet of supernal thoughts, as if characters of an unwritten tongue had left in its breadth the inscriptions of the gods. Bare in that light time toiled, his unseen works detected, the broad flood, far-seen shims, unfinished, which his aeoned flight unrolls, were mapped already in that work-wild look. Was then the sun a dream because there is night? Hidden in the mortal's heart, the eternal lives. He lives secret in the chamber of the soul. A light shines there, no pain, no grief can cross. A darkness stands between thee self and him. Thou canst not hear or feel the marvelous guest, thou canst not see the beatific sun. O Queen, thee thou is a light of the ignorance, its brilliance curtain hides from the God's face.
Thank you. It's interesting and also quite beautiful the way he begins introducing Narad's answer, as if he's situated in this very high consciousness, and now he must tune his lips to earthly sound, as if he has to kind of come down and translate, in a sense, that vision of all things, of all time, that he sees in his consciousness, translate that into human words. And something of the deep sense of fate weighted the fragile hints of mortal speech. Actually, what he can perhaps say is only give some hints of what he sees and knows. His forehead shone with vision solemnized, turned to a tablet of supernal thoughts. He has this vision of the reality now turned to a tablet of thoughts, supernal thoughts, as if characters of an unwritten tongue. He's translating them into words which had left in its breadth the inscriptions of the gods. Something of the divine truth is there written in his words. Bare in that light, of his consciousness. Time toiled, his unseen works detected. He sees all the toil of time, the course of the evolution, even that which is yet to come, the broad-flung, far-seeing schemes, unfinished, which his eoned flight unrolls, were mapped already in that worldwide look. He sees the schemes that are unrolling in the course of time. He sees that all before him. And then he says, "Was then the sun a dream because there is night?" Because there is this pain and suffering, does that negate that there is light and truth? Every day we witness this change of night and day. And then he says, "Hidden in the mortal's heart, the eternal lives." He's asserting that there is this eternal soul within each human being, each mortal. He lives secret in the chamber of thy soul. And there in that chamber, deep within us, a light shines, nor pain nor grief can cross. That light, that delight of the divine, is situated there within us eternally. And there this peace and suffering that we feel and experience in our outer consciousness cannot pierce into those depths. But a darkness stands between thyself and him, between our outer consciousness, our outer sense of who we are, our egoistic surface being, and our soul, that eternal soul within us. As a result of that intervening darkness, thou canst not hear or feel the marvelous guest, that divine inhabitant within us. Thou canst not see the beatific Son. O Queen, thy thought is a light of the ignorance. Its brilliant curtain hides from thee God's face. In part, our own thought, our own feelings separate us from the soul within. They cover it over so we cannot see or feel it. He says what our mind and heart, our feelings do in the next passage. We'll continue. Would you read?
It illumines the worlds born from the unconscious, but hides the immortal's meaning in the world. Thy mind's light hides from thee the Eternal's thought. Thy heart's hopes hide from thee the Eternal's will. Earth's joys shut from thee the Immortal's bliss. Thence arose the need of a dark, intruding God, the world's dread teacher, the Creator, pain. Where ignorance is, there suffering too must come. Thy grief is a cry of darkness to the light. Pain was the firstborn of the inconscience, which was thy body's dumb original base, already slept there, pain's subconscious shape. A shadow in a shadowy, tenebrous womb, till life shall move, it waits to wake and be. In one call with joy came forth the dreadful power. In life's breast it was born, hiding its twin, but pain came first. Then only joy could be. Pain ploughed the first hard ground of the world's drowse. By pain a spirit started from the clod. By pain life stirred in the subliminal deep.
Thank you. So he has said that our thought is a brilliant curtain that hides from thee God's face. It illumines a world born from the inconscience. So it's important here that he's saying that this world is emerging out of inconscience, out of an absence of any awareness, a kind of a darkness. And the mind hides the immortal's meaning in the world. Emerging out of this inconscience, it doesn't understand the meaning of our life. It hides from thee the eternal's thought. Thy heart's hopes hide from thee the eternal's will. Earth joys shut from thee the immortal's bliss. So all these truths of the eternal, the divine, are there, but we're unable to access them through our mind and heart. Thence rose the need of a dark, intruding God, the world's dread teacher, the creator, pain. So now he's getting at the roots of pain and suffering, their need in this world. Where ignorance is, there suffering too must come. So this world is emerging out of the inconscience, born from that. It emerges first into ignorance, out of the absolute darkness and complete unawareness. Some glimmer of consciousness comes, some glimmer of awareness, but it's an ignorance. It's a very dim light. Out of that, our life and mind arise. But in that state, suffering too must come. Thy grief is a cry of darkness to the light. There, in a sense, is the significance, the meaning, the necessity of pain. It's something emerging out of that darkness, reaching out towards the light.
He's touching this line now, that throws the leaf of the dark into the dawn. So that is which often also in the Christian tradition, other traditions, the God form is speaking you this negative to you that comes out because all came out of the inconscient. And then this kind of thinking philosophy was created.
The dark intruding God here seems to be pain. Pain and suffering. So that's intruded into the darkness, into the struggling ignorance or that emerging ignorance.
I mean, the question is for me also, that it also could be the dark including God. If it's vain, also get translated to the punishing God and to the thinking
a punishing God. Yeah, but I don't think he's referring to this Christian notion of a punishing God.
These are only not Christians, also in other traditions who came out of the inconscient.
Yeah, but here he describes it as the world's dread teacher, the creator, pain. So he sees it.
Not knowing. And that is the driving force that then keeps evolution in motion.
Exactly. That pain of ignorance, that pain of not knowing, of being divided from the oneness of existence, the pain of being small, of being vulnerable to all around us. The pain of not knowing and wanting to know. So that propels that evolution towards the light. Otherwise, you just sink back down into the darkness, into the inconscience, into unfeelingness, But with pain, it's this something wanting, striving for a solution to this state. Again, thy grief is a cry of darkness to the light. He's saying it's there not as a punishment, but it's a positive movement, crying for light. Pain was the firstborn of the inconscience, which was thy body's dumb original base. Already slept there pain's subconscient shape. Already in the darkness of the inconscience, where there was no awareness, there was some shadow of this pain. A shadow in a shadowy, tenebrous womb. Till life shall move, it waits to wake and be. It waited there in the inconscience for life to emerge. In one cowl with joy came forth the dreadful power. Yeah, it's interesting. It's a portion of the amnion, that membranous sac in which the fetus is enclosed, that comes out at birth. And sometimes then it's covering still the baby or part of it, especially the head may be covered by this cowl. So when one cowl, this one membrane birth sac with joy came forth, the dreadful power. It was born with joy. In life's breast it was born hiding its twin. But pain came first. Then only joy could be. Pain plowed the first hard ground of the world drowse. By pain, a spirit started from the clod, from the clump of mud or dirt. By pain, life stirred in the subliminal deep. It is that cry of a weak, ignorant being emerging, seeking for relief from its state. Which father of Vol? I don't. Oh, war. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Could you say that spirit, in order to enter into existence, had to go into matter? But to go into matter, you have to go into the unconscious, inconscious. And then you come back, it's part of the play. So to get spirit out of its own growls, it had to do this. So this is the process of evolution, and it happens in time. this physical time of evolution, 14 point so many billion years. But this is also part of the immortal cycle. So this is why so-called pain, this is why so-called all these so-called evil has to happen so the play can take place, so the hide and seek can end up with the aha at the end. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was necessary for the present creation that we see. I read last time or the time before something from Sri Aurobindo's prose about the issue, and where he speaks that one, our soul has chosen to descend into this. So it's not imposed, like the Queen suggests maybe it was imposed on the soul. And Sri Aurobindo gives the explanation that at some point in the infinite possibilities of being, of the divine being, one of those possibilities was a world beginning from its opposite, beginning from inconscience, and struggling to emerge back into the light, and going through that entire adventure of 14 billion years. And it presented to the soul an irresistible attraction for that adventure, for that difficult journey to go through all of these things, to re-emerge out of that darkness and into the light. So he says at a certain point that possible became inevitable, and the soul took that plunge, our souls. But from the divine side, seeing that this was inevitable, he too took that plunge, descended into the darkness, into the world, to lead it back into the light. So he descends as the avatar to lead the evolution out and back into the light, and to deliver humanity, to deliver life. So he takes on that burden himself. And Narad will get to that as well. So I will stop here for today.
Then, after a silence, Narad made a reply, tuning his lips to earthly sound. He spoke. Implacable in the passion of their will, lifting the hammer of titanic toil, the demiurges of universal world, they shape with giant strokes their own. Their sons are marked with their enormous stamp of fire.
Thanks to Sri Aurobindo.